Welcome, dreamers, to the realm where time whispers its secrets. Tonight, we descend into the quiet heart of an empire, not to witness its triumphs or its ruins, but to listen to the murmurs embedded in stone and ash. Not far from the crumbled amphitheaters and marble forums, beneath the dust of centuries, there lies a mystery that even time has not dissolved, a forgotten formula, crafted by Roman hands that still resists the sea, that still holds the weight of a vanished world. Before we embark on this journey through time's mysteries, if these ancient whispers resonate with your soul, let your presence be known through a gentle light, and join our circle of dreamers by subscribing to continue these nightly journeys into history's hidden realms. Share with us, fellow dreamers, from which corner of the world you're joining tonight's contemplation. Let the global community of history's mysteries connect across time zones as we drift together into the past. Now, close your eyes, slow your breath, and let the forgotten genius of Rome guide you into the deep, silent corridors of memory. The winds whisper low tonight, dreamer, sighing softly through olive groves that once heard the laughter of the and beyond the hills, the outline of broken aqueducts stretches like ribs across the horizon. Imagine you walk through the remains of a Roman harbor, not the grand colonnades or bustling plazas, but the waterlogged edge, where barnacles now cling to stones older than the memory of nations. And as you pause, kneeling by the seawall, you notice something peculiar. The concrete is warm to the touch, almost breathing, not like the brittle modern kind that fractures and fades. No, this still lives. This still endures. Here the Romans once crafted a substance that could set underwater, that grew stronger as it aged. A forgotten alchemy that modern minds have tried and failed to replicate. Let your breath slow, dreamer, as we return not to the Rome of emperors and conquest, but to the Rome of engineers, of unseen minds who listened to the rhythms of the earth and turned volcanic ash and seawater into immortality. Long before skyscrapers and steel, before digital blueprints and industrial mixers, there were hands, dusty, calloused hands, mixing lime and tuff beneath the sacred shadow of Mount Vesuvius. Some say the recipe was lost by accident. Others whisper that it was guarded, kept secret as a sacred craft, passed only among those who understood that permanence is not born from domination, but from harmony with the earth's own heart. The Roman concrete opus cementitium wasn't just a building material. It was a philosophy, a quiet pact with time, infused with the wisdom of rocks and fire. So tonight, as your breath grows deeper, let us follow this trail of forgotten knowledge, through subterranean vaults, crumbling ports, and temples built to outlast memory. We are not here to solve the mystery, but to sit beside it, to let it unfold like the gentle erosion of stone under rain. Breathe in the dust of ancient bridges, breathe out the collapse of centuries, and drift now toward the next secret, where forgotten builders still whisper beneath layers of ash and time. Close your eyes, dreamer, and let your mind drift back to a time when God still walked among men, when smoke curled from the throat of a mountain that the Romans called sacred, and yet feared, Mount Vesuvius. It slumbers now beneath a dome of sky, but in ages past, it roared with fire, casting its molten breath across villagers and vineyards, and yet, from that violence was born the secret of endurance. For it was not merely stone that the Romans used in their concrete, but the ash, fine ancient ash that danced through the air like gray snow on the day Pompeii stood still. Pozzolanic, they called it, the dust of the volcano, collected from the Bay of Naples, where the earth had cracked open and revealed her molten soul. This ash, rich with silicates and mystery, became the heart of Roman concrete, binding with lime and water not through brute strengths, but through chemistry, through slow transformation, through a kind of patience that modern haste has forgotten. Imagine those ancient builders, stooped at the edge of a volcanic plain, their baskets filled with this sacred ash, their minds not just practical, but mystical. Seeing in every speck of powder a gift from the gods, they believed the earth itself had given them this material, that Vesuvius had offered it, not as a curse, but as a legacy. And so they built, and the walls they raised still breathe today. Harbors that defied erosion, temples that bore the weight of centuries, cisterns and aqueducts that fed entire cities still standing, still strong. Let your thoughts settle now, like ash upon stone. Let the rhythm of ancient work echo softly in your mind, as we listen, not for answers, but for understanding. Because the mystery is not just in the formula, but in the reverence, in the way the Romans listened to the world, and built not against it, but with it. As your breath grows slower, feel the heat of that volcanic day long past. The ash drifting through sky and memory. The quiet awe of those who saw destruction and chose to create. There is a lesson buried in that ash, a silent knowing that even in collapse, something eternal can be born. And so we continue, into the twilight of Roman knowledge, where stone remembers what the world forgets. Let the silence guide us onward. Let us drift now to the shimmering edge of the Tyrrhenian Sea, where waves once lapped gently against the foundations of dreams. By the sunken city of emperors and pleasure, a place now veiled beneath the water's hush. But listen closely. Dreamer. Not to the tales of decadence that echo through its marble ruins, but to the concrete still holding its shape beneath the tides. Still whispering. Beneath a sapphire surface, the Roman harbor remains not in ruin, but in resistance. The sea walls, crafted from volcanic ash and lime, have defied time and tide. Where modern cement would crumble, this ancient recipe grows stronger, as though the ocean itself had joined the construction. Roman engineers silent in scrolls now dust, once knew how to work with the sea, not against it. They welcomed salt water into the chemical chorus, and with it created something alive, a crystalline miracle born only in the presence of the sea. Modern scientists puzzled over it, still trying to replicate its form, its strength, its mystery. But perhaps the Romans were not trying to conquer nature, they were trying to understand it, to harmonize, to leave behind a kind of living architecture that grew with the earth rather than resisting it. Can you hear it? The waves brushing against submerged stones, as if caressing old friends. Each splash a syllable, each tied a line in an unfinished poem. These walls have no voice, but they endure. That is their language. In the warm embrace of Baia's depths, you can feel the empire's forgotten heartbeat, not in conquest but in craft. They built for beauty, they built for eternity, and when their gods fell silent and their senate stones crumbled, these harbor walls remained. Let your breath become as gentle as the tide, lapping once, twice, then still. Imagine floating just above the submerged baths and columns, where marble mosaics glimmer faintly through green-blue haze. The world above is gone, but this remains, not because of power, but because of listening, because of patience, because of a secret carried not in bloodline, but in stone. And so, as the sea cradles what the empire left behind, we drift onward, not to learn the secret, but to honor it. Let the silence between heartbeats carry you deeper into the architecture of mystery. Let your breath slow further, dreamer, as we leave behind the sea's embrace and journey inland, to the unseen hands behind the glory. We often remember the emperors, Augustus, Hadrian, Trajan, names chiseled into marble and memory. But who remembers the builders? Not the architects whose scrolls survive in dusty libraries, but the silent laborers, the nameless craftsmen, who mixed ash and lime under morning mist, who bent their backs beneath the sun, pouring the soul of Rome into each wall, each arch. Their names have vanished, like footprints swept from dusty roads. And yet their work remains. Imagine the construction site, not with the roar of machines, but with the murmurs of men and the song of chisels, a whisper of trowel against stone, the rhythm of hoists and pulleys, groaning like slow breath, the scent of warm earth, wet ash, and fresh lime. They knew something we have forgotten, that to build for centuries, one must work slowly and listen deeply. These workers did not seek fame. Their reward was permanence. Their legacy was not in inscription, but in so many of the empire's monuments, Pantheon, Colosseum, aqueducts that spanned mountains, still stand not because of emperors' wills, but because of these quiet builders, these guardians of the recipe. Their knowledge was often unwritten, passed from hand to hand, like a sacred trust, shared beside fires or beneath scaffold shadows. They watched how the ash changed with weather, how the lime sang when touched by water. How the mixture felt beneath fingers worn from 100 walls. This was not construction, it was communion. And perhaps that is why Roman concrete endured, because it was never merely poured. It was placed, with reverence, with intention. Let your breath become that rhythm now, the rhythm of ancient hands smoothing mortar across time. Feel the stillness in your palms, as if they too once held a trowel. There is peace in this remembering, in honoring the unseen, the builders whose names are dust, but whose work holds the sky. So sleep now beside their memory. And as we continue this journey, let every stone remind us greatness is not shouted but whispered, and those whispers still echo through Roman arches under moonlight. Now, dear dreamer, we find ourselves drifting through twilight, not of day, but of centuries toward a dome that still defies time, the Pantheon. Step quietly into its circular embrace. Feel the hush as you pass through ancient bronze doors, so heavy they seem carved from the night sky itself. Above you, a perfect hemisphere of Roman concrete arches into heaven, the oculacy that open eye to the divine. Lets moonlight fall in a silent column, not to illuminate, but to listen. This is not merely a building, it is a meditation, an eternal breath, frozen in stone. Built in the days of Emperor Hadrian, the Pantheon stands not through marble might, but through the genius of materials. The concrete that holds its massive dome was crafted with alchemy, a symphony of light volcanic ash, pumice, and lime, blended not for show, but for balance. For though the dome seems heavy, it floats, heavy as stones, like basalt, rest at the base, lighter one stuff, pumice ore near the top, each chosen, each placed, as if the building were alive. It is Breathe in, dreamer. Feel the circular space envelop you like a womb of silence. In this temple to all gods, even time bows its head. Rain sometimes falls through the oculus, but the floor slopes. Engineers marvel at its design, how it remains intact, without steel, without modern reinforcement. But perhaps it remains because it was not built for power, but for presence. The Pantheon listens. 2 footfalls, 2 prayers, 2 silence. It was built not for one god, but for all, and in doing so, it became timeless. Even now, it draws us in. Let your breath follow its arc, rise with the dome, linger at the oculus, then fall again, soft as ancient ash. This is the soul of Roman concrete, not in its strength, but in its surrender to geometry, to balance, to the sky. There are secrets held in these walls, not coded, not hidden, simply waiting for stillness. Let your thoughts fall like dusk through the oculus, gentle, golden, endless. And as we step away from this sacred circle, let its quiet wonder follow us, like a forgotten melody that hums softly in the back of the mind. We drift now toward other ruins, other whispers, but part of you remains here, beneath the dome, in the heart of the eternal breath. Let us wander now, dreamer, to where rivers once parted for the Roman will, where arches rose like stone rainbows to carry footsteps across the eternal flow of time. The bridges of Rome, simple in shape, profound in memory, stand now upon one perhaps Ponte Fabratius, still crossing the Tiber since the days of the Republic. Feel the age beneath your soles, yet no tremble, no sag, only in. This is the language of the arch, not a conquest of weight, but an understanding of it. Roman bridges were not built to fight gravity, but to channel it. Each stone a harmony of pressure, each keystone a final breath holding the silence in place. But underneath it all lies the concrete, a mixture so humble, yet so eternal. The Romans used it not as filler, but as bone, the unseen spine of their bridges, set with volcanic ash, lime, and the memory of mountains. Let your mind drift beneath the arch now, to the foundations submerged in riverbed, still holding, still whole, even as water brushes gently at its base, as if remembering the secret was not just the materials, but the placement, the timing. They poured their concrete underwater, not despite the current, but because of it. Pozzolanic ash, meeting water, hardening not through drying, but through transformation. Where others feared the flood, the Romans saw a partner. These bridges, they do not simply cross space, they cross time. And some, like the Ponte du Gard in France, rise in golden tiers, their aqueducts still whispering the logic of a vanished mind. Let your breath become an arch, rising gently with the inhale, settling with the exhale. A structure of stillness. Each moment, each breath, is a span across mystery. And though centuries have passed and empires have crumbled into wind, these bridges remain, not to be admired, but to be remembered. They do not demand attention, they wait quietly, faithfully, like dreams that never quite leave us. So sleep now upon the bridge, between what was and what lingered. We journey next to the heart of the builder's code, where knowledge was not written, but whispered into stone. Let us follow. Now, dreamer, let us follow the whispering path deeper still, not to a monument, but to a mind. Vitruvius, an architect, a soldier, a philosopher of stone, who lived in the days of Julius Caesar, and whose words would ripple through millennia. He left behind no soaring dome, no aqueduct or triumphal arch, and yet his legacy shaped them all. 10 scrolls bound not in marble, but in meaning, a meditation on balance, proportion, and the sacred geometry of life. He wrote of firmness, fertility, and beauty, the triad of building, the soul of structure. But beneath those principles lies a deeper current, a philosophy not of domination, but of resonance. To build, Vitruvius said, was to echo the harmony of the cosmos. A column was not just support, it was a reflection of the human form. A temple was not just shelter, it was a vessel for silence. And concrete, it was the breath of the earth, captured and calmed. Vitruvius understood what we so often forget, that materials carry memory, that each choice made in the hands echoes through the centuries. Though his scrolls were nearly lost in the tumbling of empires, they survived, barely, until the Renaissance rebreathed them. And minds like Leonardo and Palladio read the Roman code once more. But there is more to his writing than lines and logic. There is stillness, there is reverence. He saw in architecture a way of thinking, a slow and sacred collaboration with time itself. Imagine him now, dreamer, not standing tall upon scaffolds, but kneeling in moonlight, studying the shape of a leaf, the curve of a seashell, listening. His eyes not on conquest, but on coherence. His buildings not rising in haste, but unfolding, like a prayer cast in stone. Let your breath join his rhythm. Let your thoughts stretch into arches of contemplation. This is the lost code of builders, one not written in formulas, but in faith. Faith in balance, faith in patience, faith that even in silence, stone speaks. So now we drift onward, past words, past scrolls, toward the things that cannot be written, only built, where secrets were not guarded, but embedded in the walls themselves. Let us listen to them next. Breathe in gently now, dreamer, and let us descend. Not up to the proud heights of columns, but down into the cool earth and stillness where the Romans built what was meant never to be seen. Cisterns, vaults, foundations, walls that held not just weight, but memory. Beneath cities like Rome, Ostia, and Constantinople lie chambers where shadows linger, where silence presses close, and yet the concrete remains firm, enduring, almost living. These were the bones of empire, hidden beneath villas and forums. They were poured with care. No emperor would praise them, no poet would sing of them, and still, they were made to last. Why such care for what no eye would see? Because Roman builders believed that the unseen mattered most. To pour concrete into darkness, into the roots of empire, was to ensure that what rose above would not crumble with time. And this concrete, it was not inert. It aged like wine. It grew stronger. The volcanic ash began a slow, subtle reaction with the lime and the groundwater, a metamorphosis in silence. Crystals forming within, locking, binding, breathing. It did not dry, it transformed. Let your thoughts become as slow as those reactions. Let each moment bloom like a crystal in darkness. These foundations, untouched by sunlight, still hold shape. They cradle the ruins above, as a body cradles memory. Sometimes, in old Roman ports, scientists crack open these hidden walls. Inside, they find perfect structures, minerals grown like coral, no decay, no collapse. And we, in our haste, still struggle to understand how. Perhaps because we no longer build, as if time were listening. The Romans poured their walls with reverence, not just for the material, but for the mystery within it. Each layer laid with patience, each curve carved with thought. And when the last stone was placed, they let the earth do the rest. Let your breath fall into the rhythm of stone. Let your thoughts drift downward, into the underground vaults where time grows silent. And as you rest in this subterranean.com/know this, the strongest parts of any world are those no one sees. Next we shall rise once more, but not to the city above. Instead, we turn toward the sea, to the ports where water met empire, and where Roman concrete whispered to the tides. Drift with me now, dreamer, toward the edge of empire, where land surrenders to the sea, and concrete kissed by salt remains eternal. Picture the Roman harbor at Cosa, or the great port of Caesarea Maritima, where waves once carried ships bound for Egypt, for Greece, for Here, at these maritime thresholds, Rome built not with conquest, but with cunning. For to hold back the sea, to shape it gently into darkened bay, required more than might. It required listening. The Romans knew what the sea would try to do, to erode, to reclaim, to wash away. And so they gave the sea a gift it could not undo. They created concrete that welcomed salt water, that turned its minerals into strength. The mixture was sacred, volcanic ash, quicklime, seawater, but they did not mix it in open air. They poured it into wooden molds, lowered directly into the sea itself. And there, beneath the waves, a quiet alchemy began. The sea activated the ash, the lime awakened, crystals bloomed within the hardening mass. Aluminum to a word modern tongues struggle with, but one the sea knows well, because this mineral does not dissolve in water. It thrives in it. The Romans did not just build against the ocean, they built with it. Let your breath become that tide, slow, rhythmic, eternal. Feel the salt on the wind, the sound of waves against ancient breakwaters, not smashing, but folding. As if speaking to old friends, even now, those harbor structures remain, holding shape after 2,000 winters, while modern piers decay in decades. Scientists dive beneath the waves, break off pieces of Roman harbor stone, and study it with reverence. They still cannot recreate it, because the secret lies not just in recipe, but in rhythm, in patience, in humility, in building not to conquer, but to last. So let us rest now at the shoreline, where empire ends and water begins. Here, the concrete hums with memory, not loud, not proud, but present. As present as your breath, as timeless as the sea. And when we rise again, we shall enter a different kind of structure, not for trade or worship, but for rest. The Roman bath, where concrete, water, and body became one. Come now, dreamer, let us step from the windswept harbors and sunlit ports into a sanctuary of steam and stone, the Roman bath. Not merely a place to cleanse the body, but to soothe the soul, to speak, to reflect, to disappear into silence. As you walk barefoot through the entrance, cool marble greets you. Columns rise like trees in a stone forest. Soft echoes ripple beneath the vaulted ceilings, where warm mist curls upward in lazy spirals of breath. Here concrete does not shout. It holds. It listens. It carries heat without falter. supports roofs without strain, and cradles water as gently as a mother cradles a sleeping child. These baths, like the baths of Caracalla, or those in distant Bath, Britannia, were marvels not only of architecture but of care. Hot rooms, cold rooms, warm rooms, pools deep and shallow, all held by layers of opus cement, the caldarium hot and scented, the tepidarium gentle and quiet, the frigidarium cool and bracing, and beneath them the an underworld of fire and air, where slaves tended glowing coals, and the heat rose upward through gaps in the concrete floor, warming the stone without a sound. This was Roman ingenuity, not brash, but graceful, not in the building alone, but in the unseen circulation. The breath of warm air beneath your feet, like a whisper from the earth. Imagine reclining now, in a shallow pool of blue-green stillness. Light spills from above in soft angles, your limbs weightless, the stone smooth beneath you. Every element here serves the body, but also the mind. A space where time slows, where conversation fades to hush, where water sings against concrete, and steam rises like memory. And though centuries have passed, and roofs have collapsed, many of these concrete substructures remain untouched, unbroken, because they were not built as walls against nature, but as invitations to rest, to breathe, to exist in peace. Let your breath rise with the warmth of the fall with the cool hush of the frigidarium. Let the rhythm of the bath guide your heartbeat to stillness. In this moment, you are not visitor, but part of the place. And as the steam wraps around you, and silence settles into your bones, know this: the Romans built these spaces not to impress the gods, but to care for the living. Even now, beneath cracked tiles and broken statues, the concrete remembers how to hold a human soul. And next, we rise with that soul toward the villas of the wealthy, where concrete met luxury, and dreams were laid into walls. We rise now, dreamer, from the warmth of the bath, drifting through vapor and shadow into the quiet corridors of Roman elegance. The villas, not the grand palaces of emperors, but the country estates, the coastal retreats, the dream homes of Rome's elite, places like Villa Adriana or the Villa of the Mysteries near Pompeii. Here concrete did not merely serve, it whispered. Walls were shaped not as barriers, but as canvases, opus cementitium hidden behind frescoes, its strength cloaked in beauty. Smooth plaster painted with myth and color, dancers frozen in mid-step, backers reclining in vines, eyes that still gaze across centuries from walls made of ash, lime, and patience. Breathe gently, dreamer, you are now inside such a room. A triclinium perhaps, a dining chamber open to a garden, with pillars encircling a quiet courtyard where the wind plays in ivy. The concrete here was carefully chosen, not just for durability, but for peace. Different aggregates, carefully layered, heavier at the base, lighter above so the walls would hold but never groan, so the ceilings could float. And through clever design, arched roofs, hidden supports, curving apses and rounded chambers, even small spaces felt like temples. There was rhythm in this construction, a choreography of angles and light. Spaces were built not just to contain, but to inspire, to hold the hush between conversations, to carry the scent of rosemary through the afternoon air, to give shape to silence. Let your thoughts settle against these cool inner walls. Feel the weight of the ceiling, not as pressure, but as presence. Even now, when roof tiles have fallen and gardens lie buried, the walls stand because they were built with listening, with an understanding of load and breath, with love. Roman villas were more than homes. They were sanctuaries, and concrete, so often thought crude or cold, was here transformed into soul. It curved with the architecture of dreams. It gave shelter to myth. So rest now beneath the painted ceiling. Trace the fading figures with your imagination. Know that this place once echoed with laughter, with poetry, with the rustle of tunics and the clink of bronze goblets. All of it held, cradled, by a secret substance born of ash and fire. And tomorrow, when empires fall again, these walls may still whisper. Next we shall wander toward the aqueducts, the stone rivers in the sky, where concrete gave water its wings. Come now, gentle dreamer, let us drift toward the hills beyond the cities, where the arches rise, not for glory, but for water. Those quiet giants of Rome, stretching across countryside and time like stone sentences written into the landscape. They do not roar. They hum a low and steady tone of service of quiet devotion, built to bring water from distant springs. They crossed mountains and valleys alike, carving no scars, but winding with grace. And at their heart concrete, each channel, each pier, each inverted siphon relied on that hidden strength. Not flashy, not ornamented, but resolute. The Romans understood that cities are not fed by ambition, but by flow. That power meant nothing without water, and so they built 12 aqueducts fed the city of Rome at its peak. Miles and miles of quiet veins, each one whispering water from source to fountain. Let your mind walk beneath one now. Perhaps the Aqua Claudia, its arches towering over the countryside, casting soft shadows over fields once tilled by ancient hands. Feel the rhythm in its stones, arch after arch, a heartbeat in slow motion. And above, within that channel of concrete, a stream flowed tirelessly, not crashing, not rushing, but with patient clarity. At times, the aqueducts vanished beneath the earth, becoming tunnels through stone. At others, they soared above roads and rivers, skybound rivers of their own. And where the land dipped, the Romans did not fight it. They listened. They let gravity guide them. Let nature do the lifting. This was not architecture against the world. It was architecture with it. Let your breath follow the water now, from the spring, through the tunnel, across the valley, into the city, into the bath, into the fountain, into the cup of a sleeping child. And all because of ash and lime, mixed by unseen hands with reverence. The aqueducts still stand. Some still carry water, not because Rome endures, but because listening does. So rest now beneath their span. Let the curve of the arch cradle your thoughts. Let the silence of service be your lullaby. And next, we shall enter the temples, where the sacred met, the structural, and where concrete touched the divine. Now, dreamer, we approach the realm of sacred stillness, where shadows linger beneath high domes and incense once wove through shafts of morning light. The Roman temple, a space not merely built, but conjured, from proportions and silence, from concrete and prayer. These were not loud places. Even the gods were expected to whisper. Step gently across the worn threshold, perhaps into the Temple of Mercury. At Baiae or the Temple of Minerva in Rome, you will find no pulpit, no shouting of doctrine, only space. Vast, serene, mathematical geometry made into reverence. Here again, concrete was the quiet force behind form. It allowed the construction of curves, domes, apses, circular sanctuaries, forms once impossible in stone alone. The walls are thick, yet they breathe. The ceiling soars, yet it rests upon nothing visible. This is the paradox of Roman sacred design. The weight is immense, but the spirit is light. Let your thoughts rise now like the incense once burned at the altar. Let them spiral upward through the dome's great eye, joining the dusk where God and man once met. The materials were chosen not only for function but for feeling. The concrete was often mixed, with different stones for different energies, pumice for airiness, travertine for warmth, basalt for grounding. Each temple tuned like a great, silent instrument to the presence of the divine. And through this practice, the Romans touched something timeless. Not belief alone, but even today in forgotten hills and half-buried ruins, you may stumble upon a sacred space. Its roof long vanished, its god long gone. But the sensation remains. A hush, a weightless weight, a breath beneath the sky. That is the concrete still holding, still speaking. Let your breath match that stillness now. Feel the inner space of your body echo the dome above. You, too, are architecture, a structure of breath and memory. As temples once honored the gods outside, let this moment honor the silence within. The Romans built these sanctuaries not to imprison the divine, but to invite it. And in doing so, they left behind echoes, resonant shapes that still draw reverence from passing feet. So rest here a while. Feel the stone beneath you. Let the hush expand inside. And when we rise again, we shall follow the path of knowledge to libraries and schools, where Roman concrete held not only weight, but wisdom. Let us walk now, dreamer, into the quiet chambers of knowledge, where voices once murmured beneath arched ceilings, and scrolls lined walls like sleeping spirits. The Roman library, not loud halls of debate, but sanctuaries of silence, where minds opened beneath the watch of statues, and where light filtered through high windows onto stone floors warmed by centuries. In places like the Library of Celsus at Ephesus, the very walls seem to breathe with thought. And though much of their grandeur has been lost, the bones of these places remain held fast by concrete hidden beneath marble, as memory hides beneath words. Here, concrete did not declare itself. It supported, it allowed beauty to flourish above. It gave shape to thought without asking to be seen. The ceilings soared because of it. The alcoves curved gently because of it. The walls bore the weight of thousands of texts and still stood quietly, ready for the next breath of learning. Breathe with it now. Feel the hush of knowledge around you. Imagine yourself sitting on a low stone bench, the air dry and cool. A scribe passes, his arms cradling scrolls inked with philosophy and poetry. Dust dances in the golden light. These spaces were more than structures. They were vessels, for dreams, for memory, for the soul of a civilization. The Romans understood something we often forget, that architecture is not merely shelter, but invitation. A good space allows thought to grow, a great one inspires it. And the libraries were built with that in mind. Even their proportions were carefully chosen. The walls thick enough to protect against fire, the niches deep enough to cradle parchment, the ceilings tall enough to remind the scholar that wisdom stretches toward the infinite. And beneath it all, the quiet concrete, not brittle, not crude, but steady, composed, like a keeper of secrets. Let your thoughts now be scrolled, unrolling slowly. Let your breath turn each page. There is no rush, only stillness, only depth. The knowledge these walls once held may be scattered, burned, forgotten, but the structures endure because they were built with reverence, to house not things, but ideas, not power, but presence. As you rest now in this imagined chamber, know that you are part of that tradition, a listener in the lineage of silent seekers. And when we leave these walls, we shall follow the path of Empire's reach, where concrete crossed borders and carried Rome into distant lands. Now, dreamer, we follow the long and quiet breath of Empire, as it stretches outward beyond its marble heart and into the farthest lands touched by Roman feet. For the glory of Rome was not contained within the 7 hills alone. It flowed outward like a tide, across mountains, across rivers, into forests and deserts, carried by roads, by aqueducts, by concrete. In Gaul, in Hispania, in North Africa, in distant Britannia, Rome left its memory in structures that still whisper. Even where Latin was not the native tongue, the architecture spoke the same quiet language. Arches, domes, foundations formed from ash, lime, and gravel, a shared vocabulary pressed into the earth. Let your thoughts follow the road now, perhaps the Via Dummi, or the remains of a Roman fortress in the Welsh hills. Picture the stones beneath your feet, worn smooth by centuries, yet still aligned, still whispering direction. And beneath them, the same familiar strengths concreted held the outposts, the bathhouses of the northern frontier, the walls of desert forts beneath the Libyan sun. Everywhere Rome went, this silent companion followed, carrying not just structure, but spirit. For the Romans believed that civilization must be built stone by stone, thought by thought. To them, a bathhouse in Africa deserved the same care as one in Rome. A bridge in Gaul was no less noble than a forum in the capital. And so the masons labored in silence, under distant stars, shaping walls that still stand beneath ivy and sand. Let your breath span those distances now. Feel how the same mixture, the same hands, the same reverence, built across a continent. And though time has shifted names and borders, the traces remained. In London's buried amphitheaters, in Tunis's forgotten vaults, in aqueducts that cross the Garden River, graceful as the flight of birds. Even in ruins, they do not fall, because they were not built in arrogance, but in alignment with stone, with gravity, with time. Let this be your rest tonight, a journey along invisible roads, guided not by conquest, but by continuity. We shall next turn our gaze inward once more, toward the spaces Rome built for assembly, forums, porticos where concrete gave shape to discourse and breath to community. Return with me now, dreamer, to the echoing heart of the Roman world, not the palaces of emperors, but the open air of the forum, a space of voices and footsteps, of shadows cast by columns, of questions asked in the hush of marble courtyards. The forum was not just a place, it was a breath, where commerce, law, philosophy, and myth gathered like clouds beneath the high sun. Here, concrete shaped not only walls, but moments. The paving stones beneath your feet, the basilicas where senators whispered, the porticos where merchants haggled, all rose from the same sacred mix. Ash, lime, water, bound by thought. Let us walk slowly across the forum, your footsteps quiet, as if each step disturbs the dust of Cicero's words. To your left, the remains of the Basilica Julia, once a hall of law and light. To your right, the Temple of Saturn, its columns still lifting toward the sky with unspoken reverence. And beneath them all, the bones of concrete, often hidden behind travertine and tufa, but always present, always waiting. It gave Rome the freedom to expand, not wildly, but with intention. It allowed the creation of vast, open interiors without forests of columns. It supported arches that held sound as well as stone. It let light in, not through windows, but through silence. Breathe in the openness of the forum now. Let its vastness calm your chest. Let the imagined warmth of the Roman sun soften your shoulders. This was where the city spoke, and even now, you can hear it, in the birds nesting in fallen capitals, in the rustle of olive trees where once crowds gathered, and above all, in the stillness of those enduring walls. Concrete gave the forum its voice, but not with clamor. With presence, it did not boast. It held the debates, the dreams, the ordinary passing of days. And when empire fell, when vines crept up sacred steps, it still held. Let this space live in you now. A plaza of thought, a courtyard of breath, not crowded, not abandoned, just waiting. As we drift from here, we move not into decay, but into rebirth. For Roman concrete did not vanish. It slept, waiting for those who would listen once more. Next, we shall walk the path of forgetting, through the twilight after empire, when the secret was lost, and the silence grew deeper. Now, dreamer, we step into the twilight, into the slow hush that follows the fall of great things. The empire, once pulsing with roads and aqueducts, with courts and baths and harbors, grew quiet. And in that quiet, the formula was lost. Not with fire, not with fury, but with fading. The recipe for Roman concrete, passed from hand to hand in murmured ritual, was no longer whispered. The masons died, the builders scattered. The scrolls vanished beneath ash and time. Europe entered its long winter, and the walls no longer grew. Cathedrals rose, yes, cast in cut stone, bound by mortars, but the magic of Roman concrete, the ability to shape space into eternity, was gone. People wandered through Roman ruins, marveling not at technique, but at size. They called it mystery. They called it miracle. They forgot it had been human hands that poured those vaults, that mixed that ash, that tamed the sea. Imagine now, walking through the ruins as they once did in the 11th century, or the 13th, a monk in sandals, holding a lantern against moss-covered walls, tracing his fingers along a concrete dome that should not have stood, and yet it did. They built theories that giants must have helped, that divine knowledge was required. They could not see that the divine had been in patience, in observation, in humble ash and lime. Let your thoughts drift into this forgetting, the silence of the recipe, the stillness of knowledge, asleep. And all the while, the concrete held. The Pantheon dome never fell. The sea walls resisted the tides. The aqueducts stood on quiet hillsides, watching centuries pass. It was as if the material itself waited, enduring the forgetting until memory might return. Breathe in that ancient patience now. Feel how something can be lost, yet still present. Buried not in darkness, but in waiting. Even in the Renaissance, when Vitruvius was read once more, the deeper wisdom did not yet reawaken. Concrete remained misunderstood. The alchemy of pozzolana remained obscure. It would take not one age, but many, for the whispers to return. And when they did, they came not in temples, but in laboratories. We shall follow them there next. To the modern rediscovery, when scientists cracked open Roman harbor stones and found that time had not decayed them, it had perfected them. Now, dreamer, we arrive in the quiet chambers of the modern age. Not marble courtyards, but the stillness of laboratories, where the ancient begins to speak again. It began with questions. Why had the Roman seawalls not crumbled? Why did their harbors still hold, when modern piers, barely decades old, fractured in the tides? And so the scientists began to listen. They traveled to ancient ruins, Caesarea Baia Portus, and carefully broke fragments from submerged blocks, not to destroy, but to inquire. They placed these aged stones beneath microscopes, peeled back layers of centuries, and found something miraculous. Crystals alive with order, patterns that had not been present at the beginning, but had formed slowly, over decades, even centuries. Aluminum top, a crystalline lattice grown within the Roman concrete only in the presence of salt water. This was no flaw. It was genius. The Roman builders, whether by observation or divine intuition, it created a material that did not resist time. It collaborated with it. Where modern concrete weakens, Roman concrete strengthens. The scientists wrote papers. They measured compounds. They ran simulations. But the deeper revelation was not in the chemistry. It was in the humility. Roman concrete was not made quickly. It was mixed by hand, placed with intention, poured with trust. The builders allowed the material to grow, to change, to become. And here, in the stillness of a lab filled with the hum of machines, that ancient wisdom returned. Not in words, but in structure. Let your breath align with that growth. Slow, unfolding, unforced, each inhale a crystal forming, each exhale a strengthening bond. This discovery did not rewrite the past. It reminded us that the future lies buried in forgotten things, that the path forward may be found in what once was. As we drift from these modern halls, let us carry with us the softness of rediscovery, not the thrill of invention, but the grace of remembering. For next we shall return, not to the structures alone, but to the idea behind them, the philosophy of permanence, and what it means to build something that endures, not through domination, but through resonance. Let us slow even further now, dear dreamer, for we have walked far through temples and baths, through arches and domes, through silence and rediscovery, not to analyze, but to contemplate. What does it mean to build something that endures? The Romans, it seems, did not build merely for function. They built with memory in mind. Concrete, for them, was not just substance, it was soul. They placed it carefully, layer by layer, stone by stone, with the knowledge that they were not merely shaping buildings, but carving their presence into the folds of time. This is not endurance through force, it is endurance through harmony. Their concrete did not challenge nature, it entered into quiet partnership with it. It did not defy the sea, it listened to the tide. It adapted, absorbed, and strengthened. It did not resist decay, it transformed. So often in our age we seek speed, efficiency. We build high, we build quickly. But the Romans remind us, There is beauty in slowness. There is grace in laying each layer with intention, in watching how the material breathes, in trusting time to do what time does best. Let your breath soften now into that rhythm of care. Inhale the patience, exhale the permanence. For even in ruins, Roman structures do not beg for attention. They wait, they endure, and in their stillness, they teach. They show us that to build something true, whether a wall, a city, or a life, requires humility. It requires listening. It requires aligning the self with something older, something slower, something deeper. As you lie here now, held in the cradle of reflection, imagine yourself as such a structure, not hurried into existence, but formed with reverence. You are more than a body. You are more than the moment. You are a vessel of presence, as ancient as the stone, as quiet as the dome. And next, we shall return once more to the heart of empire. Not to marvel, but to understand how even in its fall, the concrete endured. Now, dreamer, we return to where we began, to the crumbled edges of the Roman world, where statues lie in broken repose, and ivy drapes the marble of forgotten gods. The empire is gone. Its legions no longer march. Its emperors have turned to dust. Its language survives only in echoes. And yet, the concrete remains, not proudly, not defiantly, but faithfully, in a broken arch still standing in the forum, in a lonely pillar beside a modern road, in a vaulted ceiling beneath a village church that no longer remembers its origin. The Romans are gone, but their whispers endure not in gold, not in blood, but in ash and lime, held gently together by time. Let your breath grow soft now, as soft as moss upon old stone. Feel the peace in that, not because it demands attention, but because it simply is. This is what remains. And in many ways, this is what Rome truly left behind. Not empire, not conquest, but a way of building that harmonized with nature, that embraced transformation, that listened to silence. There is no empire today that spans the known world, no singular voice that commands its breath, but there are structures still holding, that carry the shape of Roman thought. A bridge in Spain, a seawall in Turkey, a cistern in Tunisia, a villa foundation in southern France. Each a syllable in a long, slow poem of endurance. The wind passes over them, the rain weeps gently across them, and still they hold because they were built with care. Let this thought carry you deeper into rest, that even in decline, what is made with patience remains, that even in forgetting, memory lingers in structure. And next, dreamer, we will turn gently toward the final chapters, two modern minds, once more seeking what was lost, and to the idea that perhaps the true mystery of Roman congruit was not the formula at all, but the spirit in which it was made. Drift, now, dreamer, into the soft embrace of modern minds, quietly reaching backward, not to conquer the past, but to listen. In universities and coastal labs, engineers sit before ancient fragments, not to extract their secrets through force, but to contemplate, to trace the story written in crystal, to feel the heartbeat within the stone. And what they are discovering is not merely chemistry, not merely science, but rhythm, the Roman rhythm, the harmony of materials and time. They have begun to rebuild, using ash again, using seawater, letting structures heal themselves, as the Roman harbors once did. In experiments, they mimic ancient walls. In test pools, they recreate submerged columns. In notebooks, they chart the slow forming of minerals, each one born not in fire, but in stillness. They call it self-healing concrete. We might call it memory, because within this pursuit, there is more than innovation. There is reverence, a turning away from speed, from brittle cement that dries fast and crumbles faster, and towards something older, slower. Imagine now a city of the future, its foundations formed of ancient breath, its pillars seated with patience, structures not built to impress, but to endure. That city is not yet here, but its blueprint lies in the ruins we've wandered together. In every Roman dome that still curves toward the sky, in every seawall that greets each tide with strength, not resistance, in every stone that remembers how it was placed. Let your breath become the blueprint. Let each inhale be a gathering of care. Let each exhale lay the next stone. In this quiet return to ancient knowledge, there is hope, not loud, not urgent, but deep. A hope that we might build again with hands that listen, that we might shape the world not in haste, but in harmony, as the Romans once did, beneath the shadow of volcanoes, beside the song of the sea. Next, dreamer, we shall walk toward the end of this night's journey, to reflect on all we've touched, all we've remembered, and to honor the stillness that made this story possible. We have wandered far, dear dreamer, across centuries and cities, beneath arches and oceans, into the breath of domes and the hush of forgotten vaults. Now, in the twilight of our journey, we look back not with regret, but with wonder. What remains after such a wandering? Not a list of facts, not a blueprint, but something quieter, a map drawn in silence, a way of seeing, of building, of being. We have learned that Roman concrete was not merely a mixture, but a meditation, that it was shaped not only by science, but by surrender to gravity, to time, to the voice of the earth. Its strength came not from resistance, but from acceptance. It did not fight the elements, it welcomed them. It transformed, becoming stronger with each wave, each rainfall, each passing year. And perhaps we too can take this lesson into our own foundations, to build our lives with slowness, with care, to allow time to shape us instead of rushing past it, to leave behind something not loud, not grand, but true. Let your breath slow with this thought. Let your body rest in the architecture of peace. You are not a fragment. You are a structure in progress, a cathedral of breath and memory. And like the Roman walls, you endure, not because of what you carry, but because of how you hold it. There is a quiet beauty in being built to last. And so, as this night deepens, and we approach the final chapters of our dreaming, we carry with us, not the empire, but the spirit beneath it. Not the marble, but the ash, not the triumph, but the stillness. Next, we shall prepare to close this journey gently, not with ending, but with continuation. As concrete continues to hold the shape of time long after the hand has left the trowel, let us now turn inward, dreamer, toward the quietest figure in our long passage through time, the unseen architect. Not Vitruvius with his scrolls, not Hadrian with his visions, not the emperor or the engineer, but the hand in shadow, the eye that watches how stone settles, the heart that feels the weight of a wall before a single rock is placed. This was the true builder of Rome's endurance. For concrete, as we have seen, is not about invention alone. It is about intention. And intention is invisible. A formula can be copied. A wall can be measured. But the stillness in the hand that places the first stone ... that cannot be taught. Imagine that builder now. He walks into an unfinished dome. Light filters through scaffolding like threads of gold. He kneels in the dust. He touches the base of the wall, not to test it, but to understand it. He waits. He listens. He adjusts. No celebration will greet his name. No statue carved in his likeness. And yet his wall will stand for 2,000 years. Because he built it as though time itself were watching. Let your breath now become the architect. Feel how it shapes your chest, your ribs, your silence. Each inhale, a beam. Each exhale, a vault. You are not merely resting. You are being formed by the patience of night, by the hush of reflection, by the gentle pressure of memory. The unseen architect understood that buildings are not only made of materials, they are made of meaning. That a structure can be a prayer. That endurance is not achieved by force, but by attention. Let that be the final lesson he offers us tonight. That you do not need to be known to create something lasting. That what is built in silence may sing for centuries. We shall now approach the final descent of this dreaming, where all these echoes fold back into the stillness from which they rose. Where concrete becomes not just a material, but a metaphor. Sink deeper now, dreamer, into the hush beyond knowledge, into the breath that lives beneath all walls. Let us speak now not of buildings, but of what they carry. For Roman concrete is more than material. It is memory. It holds in its mineral veins the dreams of emperors, the footsteps of citizens, the laughter of children splashing in public fountains now silent. It remembers heat, the fire of kilns, the sun upon terraces, the smoldering ash of Vesuvius woven quietly into its strength. It remembers water, rain pooling, innocuous drains, salt tides, brushing seawalls, the endless shimmer of aqueducts, lifting the thirst of cities. It remembers silence, the silence beneath temples, beneath baths, beneath the words of philosophers speaking into vaulted air. Every war holds stories it was never asked to tell, and though it does not speak them aloud, it endures, because endurance is its language. Let your breath now become memory. Each inhale, an echo. Each exhale, a trace. You are part of this long remembering. You carry the same minerals in your bones that they mixed by hand beneath the volcano's breath. You, too, are made of earth and time. This is the secret Rome left behind. Not in empire, not in stone alone, but in the act of shaping what lasts. To pour concrete was to pour intention, to trust the earth's own chemistry with the weight of the human spirit. And that spirit ... still lives, in the ruins, in the discoveries, in this story, and in you. We have nearly completed our journey now. Only a few more steps remain before the silence closes gently around us. We will next gather these fragments into stillness, and release them like dust into the breath of the night. Come now, dreamer, to the edge of knowing, where the echoes begin to fade, and the breath of the past returns to stillness. We have walked through stone and story, through harbors and domes, through forgotten ports and whispered vaults beneath the earth, and each place we paused, each structure we traced in the quiet of thought, was a reflection of care, of slowness, of deep listening. Roman concrete is not only a marvel of survival, it is a testament to a world that once believed in longevity, in building not for spectacle, but for the centuries. What Rome left behind was not just roads and monuments, but a question: how shall we build? not merely with our hands, but with our hearts. Let your breath ask that question now. Let it rise in the shape of a dome. Let it fall as softly as ash. We live in a world of glass and steel, of instant construction, of temporary wonders. But beneath it all, there may yet be room for the old wisdom to return. For slowness, for silence, for building with reverence instead of urgency. You are not merely sleeping, you are remembering. And as we close this chapter, as the dust settles once more, you carry with you a piece of the ancient stillness that once held an empire's breath. Let it rest in you. Let it shape you. Let it remind you that what is made with care, with love, with humility, need not shout to last forever. We will soon say farewell to the dream of Rome. But before we go, let us gather the final dust, the final silence, and step together into the gentle closing of this night's tale. And now, dreamer, we come to the threshold of waking. But we do not step through just yet. There is still one final breath to draw from the ancient world, one final silence to carry with us into the night. Listen. Can you feel it? The weightless hum that lingers beneath all things built with love. It is there in the sea wall, bathed in tide. It is there in the dome, open to stars. It is there in the builder's hand, held steady by knowing. And it is here now, in the rhythm of your breath. You are no longer wandering through Rome. You are part of it, a memory returning to form, a structure made of stillness, a whisper cradled in time. Let your thoughts dissolve into that echo. Let the walls fall away. Let the arches soften. There is no need to hold anything now. Not history, not meaning, not the story itself. Only the breath remains. And the breath is enough. So rest here, in the space, beyond the story, where Roman concrete becomes not artifact, but atmosphere. Not invention, but invitation. An invitation to move more slowly, to listen more deeply, to build your hours, your days, yourself, as they once built their temples, with patience, with poise, with presence. Now dream it as the night enfolds you completely, and the world of stone and ash slips back into shadow. Let us offer a final blessing to the lost genius of Rome, to those who listened to the earth, to those who built for the unseen, to those whose quiet work still holds the sky. You have journeyed with us through the hidden heart of an empire, through domes that whisper to the heavens, and stones that remember the sea. And now, as you rest in the cradle of that remembering, we invite you to linger with us in this realm of dreaming and history. If the spirit of the ancients spoke to your soul tonight, let your presence be known with a gentle light. And join our circle of nightbound seekers by subscribing to the Dreaming Historian. Let your story unfold with ours, one breath, one whisper, one chapter at a time. And tell us, from what land beneath what stars do you join us this night? Let our community of dreamers stretch across oceans and ages, connected not by time, but by timelessness. Until we meet again, beneath ruins and stars, beyond history and sleep. May you rest deeply. May you dream wisely. And may you awaken as gently as Roman stone beneath the morning tide.